So a lot of times when a pro does a frontside nose grind on a handrail, it looks a bit like a frontside overcrook, and people in the comments will argue. For example, just look at this one by Elijah Burrell.
If that's a nose grind, a backside crook is also a nose grind. SLS not knowing what an overcrook is crazy. Frontside overcrook of the year. Back foot went over the rail, truck is pinched and board is crooked. Almost like this trick has a different name.
So why the discrepancy? We'll talk about that and then we'll show some examples in a little bit. It comes down to wheel locks, and I don't mean the kind that make it so it's hard to steal the rims off of your fancy car. I mean the way pros will lock into grinds on a handrail. So technically what you could do is grind right down the center of the truck, right perfectly in the middle. You could do it, but it's very hard because if your truck is even a little bit loose and you get just slightly off, the truck is going to turn, it's going to pinch. So what a lot of pros will do, they'll either lock on the toe side, they'll lock on the heel side, or they'll cross lock if you're grinding with both trucks. But what happens if you toe lock on a nose grind? You will start to turn a little bit backside. That's what the truck does. You put weight on the toe side, the board turns this way. So the board starts to turn a bit front side, you're going more blind than normal. Probably not going to do that. You do see it sometimes, but you don't really see that too often. What you see more often is locking in on the heel side. And again, the truck is going to turn and you're going to be slightly drifting front side as the grind goes on. So let's take a look back at that clip by Elijah Burrell and just take a look at what his intention is. You see him pop up onto it, he locks into the nose grind, the board is starting to drift a little bit over, and both on the bail and the make, he is more centered and kind of comes off more straight than you would expect. You at least know he's not thinking about doing a crook. He isn't popping in, locking directly into the crook right off the bat. He's locking in on the heel side and the board is starting to drift over. For a crook, you don't really just want a heel side lock, you want an actual pinch there. Even though sometimes even pros will do a crooked grind that will lose that pinch at some point, so it's not an exact science here. But what is the difference between a heel side locked angled nose grind and a heel side pinched crooked grind? Not all that much, but I do think it is technically possible to do a front side overcrook. And I will give you 3 examples in order of how legitimate they feel, and I'm going to use the game session to give you ideal examples.
So here is my first example. This is also on a round rail, but you'll see a couple of things that are different in this one, which is that I am rotating into it and landing directly in the crook, not landing heel side and slowly turning. Is locked in directly, and if you turn even a little bit more, the wheel would drop off. I'm sliding almost directly on the wheel right in the middle. If you were able to do one this exaggerated and this obviously set up to be a crook on purpose, I think it'd be very hard to look at this and call it a nose grind. And the next example would be on a ledge or hubba in this particular case. Because there's no coping, you don't have to do a lock at all. You just ride onto it. So turning front side does you no good. It doesn't help you. In fact, it makes it a lot harder. I have seen this trick a few times. People used to do it back in the late 1980s, but it's not really that popular of a trick. It's very hard to hold on to. The board's just going to want to roll, especially with the way you'd have to pinch it. I think you'd have to pinch it toe side, and then the truck would be kind of straight, but then your board would be turned. It's a weird trick. You don't see it much. I'm gonna mention it here because it is technically possible, and I would call this a front side overcrook. There's one more example. For the last one, we first got to talk about what the magazines would have called this trick back in the day. Can't call it a back tail because he's approaching front side, and you can't call a front blunt because the wheels aren't sliding. So what they would have said is ollie over to backside tail slide, which would make this an ollie over to backside crooked grind. Now in this case, calling this a nose grind in any way is ridiculous. So this is obviously an ollie over to backside crooked grind. But the thing is, when games came out, they had to stop describing tricks with a phrase. So instead of ollie over to backside crook, it became ollie plus overcrook. It's been 30 years, so at this point, that's just how skateboarders talk. But I think this one is undeniably a frontside overcrook.
So that's why a lot of pros are hesitant to use the phrase frontside overcrook, but I do think they're technically possible. If you agree or disagree with that, let me know in the comments.